All those memories came back to me after I was invited to a friend's wedding where I were the best man. My name is Arthur. I'm 33 years old, and all this happened when I was just 24 years old, shortly after I finished college. At the time, I was dating my girlfriend, now wife, Allison. It's a quite a rocky story, a roller coaster story, more bit say it. And it's something that most people probably wouldn't even believe if I told them that. I only told this story to a handful of people throughout the years, and I'm glad that all of this is all over. But, anyways, here's a story of what happened. Actually, I met my future wife Allison at the high school. We actually went to the same year. At first, we were just good friends. But it all changed when we entered our senior year, when we first started dating. Allison told me that she wanted to be a veterinarian, and later she informed me that she actually had been accepted into a veterinarian college. But she told me it was located in a different state. But I told her to go for it. If she wanted to follow her dream, she should do it. And what about myself? Well, I want to be a mechanic, since I actually have been helping my dad many times with the car, and even had a part-time job at a family friend's car repair shop. And my dream was to be open my own car repair shop one day. After we both finished high school, we spent the rest of the summer together before we went separate ways to college. We went we remained in contact on FaceTime on social media, and of course we did meet each other during the holiday breaks. But during our third year of college, during summer break, I actually went to see Allison in her state where she was staying at the time. I even brought her to a nice restaurant. I proposed to her. She said yes. The only one that we told at the time was a few friends and her family. I was really busy not to be telling my family. It was probably for a good reason that I didn't tell them. I might be a little bit ahead of me, but after we both finished college around the year 2014, we moved back to our hometown with the plans to get married and move in together. But shortly after I got home, my parents actually was happy to see me again. But when I got home the same day, I find that my parents had invited a couple and their daughter Jennifer. Jennifer was around the same age myself, around 24 years old. I thought maybe they were just some friends of to my parents, but they actually had different agenda. And you may understand why. Because during dinner, they had something shocking to tell me. My dad told me, "So, son, now you're finished college. Now it's time for you to get married with Jennifer." I was shocked. Like, I didn't know I had no words to respond to this. But turned out that my parents and Jennifer's parents actually had this arranged so that I will marry their daughter, and even the fact that she didn't want to marry me at all, I later found out about it, but still, I was stunned. It turned out my parents and Jennifer's parents actually had been had this arranged when I started college. Jennifer herself never went to college, but I was stunned, shocked, and I did tell my parents, like, "Mom, Dad, it's not gonna happen since I'm already engaged." My parents told me like then, "That engagement is not gonna happen. It's time you need to dump your girlfriend or fiance and marry this girl," said my parents. At least my dad said, a little bit angry tone. But I didn't respond to that. All I did was just stand up, middle of the dinner, and told my parents, "Goodbye, Mom and Dad," and just left. I left, but despite them yelling me to come back, But I didn't. I just went to my car and just drove away. I drove over to Allison's parents' house. Her family was aware of, like I said, was aware of us being engaged. They were just happy for us to be happy together. But I informed them what my parents had told me. They were shocked and even angry. Allison was very devastated. She was really mad that my parents had even made this, even not informed me. But I told her that even though that despite they had been, if they had told me this earlier, I'm more likely still not even gone through it. So I just used to leave town as far as away as possible from my family. Allison's family would pay for the wedding and the honeymoon, since her family is wealthy. Her dad owned his own bank, and her mother was a CEO, an architect firm in town. So they were really well rich in a perspective. We later went on their plans, and we actually had our wedding in our hometown, and I had some of my only invited the close friends and even some family friends. But my parents, they were not even allowed. But even if I did send them invitations, they didn't even show up at all. From I heard from some family friends, my parents was still pretty much upset that I was getting married with someone else, not the one that they chose. But afterwards, we went to Paris for our honeymoon for 2 weeks, and we had just had a good time. Me and Allison stayed with her family for a short time after we came home. My family My family had learned that I had returned home with Allison, and they came over to Allison's house, and they wanted to tell me, convince me to leave Allison by getting a divorce. But I told them that's not happening, and they in fact didn't have the right to do so. My dad told me firmly, Arthur, it's best you divorce her and marry Jennifer for the good of both their family's sake. But I told him that's not happening. And in fact, I told him I know that Jennifer didn't even get to marry me. In fact, she didn't even like me the same way. But my parents told me that didn't matter because arranged marriage between the families for the best. But I told them, no matter what you tell me, you will never convince me. I told them that if they didn't leave me and Allison alone, I will disown them as my family. But then, my dad told me that he will arrange so that my marriage with Allison wouldn't last long and have it dissolved. Meaning that he would try to get a lawyer to have this marriage just dismissed. But it didn't go as he planned. Shortly afterwards, me and Allison moved away. We moved to a different state, where Allison started working as a veterinarian, and I opened my own car repair shop. Things between us went actually really well. And 3 years later, we welcomed our first daughter to the world, and we named her Julia. My parents actually reached out to me after they somehow learned about that I had my first child. They wanted to get to see her and get to know their granddaughter. I thought maybe now they finally had accepted Allison as their daughter-in-law, but it didn't. So I had enough. I told them that's not happening. And shocking enough, I actually was told from a childhood friend back home that my parents wanted to get sole custody of Julia. They lied to the authorities that me and Allison were drug users, alcoholics, and that we were abusing our daughter so badly. But in the end, the truth came revealed to them that we were never done that. And they ended up having a permanent restraining order against them, and David was served a heavy fee for making up such lies about me and Allison being such bad people and even abusing our own daughter. It's the worst. And, well, let's say they even end up in having a some time in a prison because of that. That was the last time I saw or even heard from them directly. And shortly sometimes after all this happened, we actually have a son which we named John. I'm really happy to have a son and a daughter and be married with the one that I love the most in the whole world. I can understand why my parents would even go so far to have this arranged marriage with a girl that I didn't even know, and even go so far making so much lies. Me and Allison were drug users, alcoholics, and if we abused our own daughter, that's so messed up in so many levels on that. I don't understand what my parents even went through from that. And honestly, I know that my parents only end up in jail for at least, I think it was about 4 or 5 years at least. And even when they get out, I'm not allowing them to even meet. I will tell my daughter and son when they're old enough about their grandparents to make sure that they stay away from them. Even if they won't try to reach out to them when they're older. Of course, it will be up to them when they're old enough even to want to meet their grandparents, if the grandparents are still alive or not. But they actually love Allison's parents, their maternal grandparents. In fact, I consider them as more close as parents than my own. Ever since then in the jail, they even tried to reach out to me by letter once. But after I read it, they asked and begged me for forgiveness and were hoping that they could once be able to see their grandparents, their grandkids. But I wrote back a letter to tell them never read another letter to me or even try to reach out to me, or I will make sure you would never see us ever again. Ever since then, I hadn't even heard a single word from my parents directly or indirectly. And that's all I really want to, including Allison. Because during all this event happened, especially before we got married, and even before, after we were married and we had our first daughter, she was horrified when I told her that we have been accused of abusing Julia so badly. She was horrified, and my parents helped us get a lawyer to have this mess taken care of. So, to my former parents, let us never meet. Because if you ever try to reach out to me or even reach out to my family, I will take legal actions. So, like I said, to my former parents, let us never meet again.